Hello, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. My name is Marissa Sertichvili, and I'm the Executive Director with the Retail Bakers of America. For those who are not familiar with the Retail Bakers of America, or RBA, we are a national membership-based trade association that supports education and community in the baking industry. As a part of that mission and focus on education, the RBA offers various levels of certification, which is what we're here to talk about today, with the Certified Master Baking credential being the most prestigious. Certified Master Bakers really represent the top talent of the baking industry. They epitomize professionalism and leadership, and we are so proud to have them as a part of the RBA community. I'm excited to have here with us today four talented CMBs, although saying talented CMB sounds like a redundancy to me. We have Leanne Adams, who is the manager of baking development at Sheets, Kristen Egan, an accomplished pastry chef and chef instructor at the Culinary Institute of America, Aileen Semenitz, who works in research and development at Tribeca Oven, and Derek Corsino, a pastry chef and chef instructor who has worked at various institutions around the country. Those are just brief introductions, skimming the surface of the accomplishments of these four talented chefs. So I'm going to let them give you a little more information about themselves, as well as what brought them to the Certified Master Baker exam. I'm going to start with Derek simply because he's next to me on my screen.
Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Derek Corsino. I've worked in education now for 12 years. Prior to that, I owned a specialty cake shop in upstate New York. And really, I'm in all parts of education. My main job is in high school education, culinary arts, baking and pastry, hospitality. Apparently, I'm teaching an interior design class tomorrow, so that's new. I don't know. So at CMB, interior designer to the whole mix. But I also teach at the collegiate level, primarily online hospitality programs and professionals as well. What brought me to CMB is a lot of my teachers when I was in culinary school. It was something to aspire to. They had the certification. They would talk about it. And then as an educator, it was also my students were doing a competition with Skills USA and they were preparing for nationals. So it was a way for me to stay relevant and like prove to myself and my students that, hey, I might not do this all every day anymore, but I still got it.
Great. Aileen, I have you up next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Aileen Semenitz. I have been in the baking industry for about 18 years. I received my undergraduate degree in finance and then kind of took a big turn away from that and decided to go to culinary school. While I was in culinary school, I started working in different bakeries, primarily in New York City. And then for the past 8 years, I have been at Tribeca Oven, which is a big bread manufacturer, and I lead the research and development team there. I think similar to what Derek was saying, which is of what brought me to try to become a CMB, very similar. While I was in culinary school, instructors of mine held that title, and then also mentors of mine along the way have also been CMBs. And for me, I think I'm always looking to challenge myself. And again, I think similar to what Derek was saying, I primarily work in bread, and that's my focus. However, I have worked in a number of different areas across the bakery world. And I really wanted to keep my level of development and keep working on the practice. And I think, like you were saying, like staying relevant and knowing that I can do it, and not losing the skills that I've learned along the way, and challenging myself to get to that next level. And I think even just inspiring me in different ways. So while I was practicing, I think, working on areas of the baking world that I don't play in every day, it brought inspiration to the work that I was doing on a regular basis. So all good things, and really happy to be here today to talk about more.
I think that's a great point, Aileen. I think one of the challenges of the CMB exam is that it's targeted towards a full line bakery. So it has the whole scope of production from cakes to breads to everything in between. And it's one of the challenges, and we'll come back to that probably later in the discussion. Yeah, thank you. Leanne, you're next. Oh, wait, you're muted. There you
Let's
go.
try that again. Hi, I'm Leanne Adams, and my background is similar to Aileen. I started out in college, education of the deaf, communication disorders, and realized that was not what I was supposed to be doing, and got myself to culinary school. I'm a Johnson & Wales graduate, and I have been happily baking for more years than I want to admit. I was the pastry chef at a couple of hotels, and then I moved to Penn State, where I was the executive pastry chef for the entire college. We have a large scratch bakery on campus. And while I was there, I learned how to bake big in scratch. So for scratch baking, my forte is a little bit bigger than most scratch bakeries. And then from there, I had the privilege to move on to the Culinary Institute of America, where I was an instructor. While there, I had a couple things that pushed me. One of them was I was trying out for the Bread Bakers Guild of America bread baking team for the United States presence at the Coupe du Monde de Boulangerie. And I was lucky enough to get to the finals. But that journey taught me that the minute you sign up for something like that, it puts you in for me at least, it put me in a position where I was panic stricken. And then I realized I really had to get my keystering gear and push myself. And that practice and training and receiving feedback and critique helped me grow a lot. And when I was at the Culinary Institute, as the other chefs have talked about, I was surrounded by CMBs, and their professionalism, their skill level, their dedication, all of it led me to look at getting that certification, and the idea that this would be another push. This would force me to grow and learn and work at my craft instead of just kind of meandering through the day. So I got my CMB, and that led me to when I decided to come back to Pennsylvania. My husband and I are from PA, and I started looking for employment. I was lucky enough to get a position with Sheetz, which is a convenience store chain. People are like, you're at a gas station, but it's a very nice gas station. And I'm the director, I'm the manager of development, R&D work for bakery and ready-to-eat foods. I have a crew of 3 chefs under me, and I have a great position at Sheetz. What got me in the door right away was the CMB on my resume. The company recognized immediately that that was a level of expertise that they wanted to bring into the fold of the company. It opens doors. It is instantly recognizable. Every day, I'm grateful for a couple of things in my life: my education, my certification, and the group of people that those things have opened up to me. The RBA is one of my resources and some of the best people I've encountered. It's been a lovely experience for me. And Marissa will tell you, I'm also one of the judges for the CMB exam, so I have the privilege of helping people get through the exam as a mentor and as an evaluator. So lots of value built into the CMB and the RBA. So that's my speech.
And Leanne is also being modest. She is our lead judge with the Retail Bakers of America, and she helped develop a lot of the materials like the grading rubrics and those sort of things. She's been a big part of the process. And for the attendees here, I know on this call, I'm noticing there's several candidates actually on our call today, and you have the benefit of not just having certified master bakers here that have been candidates, but Aileen, Leanne, and Kristen have all been involved in judging as well. So you have that benefit. So make sure you're utilizing the Q&A or the chat if you do have questions of any kind. Kristen, you're up next to introduce yourself. Hello.
Hi, my name is Kristen Egan. I am an associate professor at the Culinary Institute of America in the pastry department. My background, I went to college for hotel restaurant management, and I worked front of the house in hotels for just a few years, and then realized I really wanted to bake. So I came back to culinary school, and then I spent my career in mostly New York City, working in restaurants, doing plated desserts. So I come from more of the pastry background, and I had a business on Cape Cod selling desserts wholesale to restaurants and doing a lot of wedding cakes. And then I came to teach at the Culinary Institute of America 10 years ago. And many of the people that I work with are CMBs. And I, as a new instructor here 10 years ago, they were like my mentors. So I looked up to them. And so when the exam was going to be held here at the CIA, two people that I started with said, "Hey, you're going to take the test?" And I was like, "I don't know, I'm not a bread baker." And they were like, "Just do it. Why don't you just try it?" And I thought, well, okay. And I'm really glad I did because, kind of like what Aileen was saying, Aileen is a bread baker, and it sort of exposed her to a little bit of pastry doing the exam. Like, I'm a pastry chef, and I had to really kind of dive into bread, which was not my forte. I had done a little bit of bread in my career, but it was not my focus. And so, when I decided to take the CMB exam, I had to, I went to the breads class every single morning, specialty breads, to like practice rolling baguettes and to practice shaping Danish. And it was like being a student again. It was wonderful. And it's just sort of, I don't know, it kind of just lit a little flame under me. So yeah, it was really great. It was also, for me, the biggest challenge of that exam was the time management,
Uh-oh, we might have lost Kristen. I know they had some internet problems at the CIA, so we might have to
And
get.
so,
Oh, wait.
it's, okay. Am I back?
You're back. You're back. Yes. I think
Okay.
you're back.
Oh gosh, I'm telling you, of all times to like lose the network. So anyway, that's my little spiel. So I wonder if the internet's back now. So I'm gonna see if the internet's back. So I'll get off my hotspot off my phone and try to get on the internet. We'll see. So thank you, and I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. And Kristen brought up an interesting point with how she prepared a little bit for the exam by going to the breads class. So I'd like to get into that topic of the best way to prepare for this test. I know there's different levels of familiarity in the audience with the process of the exam, but for those who aren't familiar, it's a very rigorous test. It begins with the application process that first is reviewed, and then you're accepted as a candidate. Prior to even arriving at the practical exam, there's a 200 question written test that has to be passed first. The exam is 2 full days of production from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it, again, covers the full range of products from baguettes to enriched doughs, lamination, and cakes. So I'd like to know a little bit. I know, Kristen, maybe we'll follow up with you. You said you did the breads class. That was your area of weakness. How else did you set yourself up for success for the test?
All right, well, hopefully you can hear me. I definitely utilized Leanne Adams as my mentor. So even though I knew she was going to be the judge, like, I emailed her photos of what I was doing. I emailed her questions. I bounced ideas about recipes off of her because it's a resource that I don't know if everyone taps into. I don't know why you wouldn't, because this is the person that's going to be judging your exam. So don't you want to please this person? I would think so. So I would send her videos and ask her, and she was, Leanne was an instructor, and so she's very good at teaching. And so that was the biggest resource. Was, yes, of course, talking to the people that work here was very helpful, and the other CMBs. But to me, Leanne and using that mentorship of the judges was invaluable.
And a little footnote there, when you do register for a practical exam site, RBA will put you in contact with your judges, or at least some judges that have just judged previously. And candidates do. We encourage candidates to reach out, send pictures, ask questions. The exam is not meant to be a secret. We hope that we set you up for success, and it's skills-based. So that's great. Derek, do you want to jump in on how you prepared for your test? Derek's a more recent CMB. He earned his CMB in 2024.
January.
So it's fresh in the memory.
So yeah, mentorship first and foremost. But kind of moving past that, I come from the world, all right, my primary job now is a high school educator. If there's something that we don't have in high school is sometimes equipment and resources. Luckily, I was supported by a school who didn't mind me using ingredients, and they were 100% behind me having to buy whatever I needed. But I didn't have a sheeter. I only had convection ovens. I did not have a deck oven. High schools don't have deck ovens. And, it was really hard to get into other places that did during off times. A lot of times it wouldn't work. I ended up buying a gravity feed cheater. Yay, grant money. Justified it. But, it's getting in front of the equipment that you're going to be using and knowing that you can ask questions day of. And that was asking mentors, asking, who's going to be critiquing you ahead of time, like, oh, hey, what kind of equipment are we going to be using? Some stuff is standard. Hobart's a Hobart. Rotating rack ovens, we should probably all know how to use one of those. But we might even have a deck oven, but it might not have steam injection. So, trying to mimic circumstances the best you can. That was my big thing of ask for help, and you're going to get an answer. And get in front of the equipment that you need and that you're going to be actually testing on, so it's not a surprise.
Aileen, I'd be curious to know about how you prepared for the test as well. I know some of our candidates come from education, and some do have weekends available to practice or the equipment available. But in a production bakery, sometimes that's a struggle finding the space and the time. So how did you prepare for the test?
Yeah, so I am lucky in that there is a small area that has some of the equipment, essentially a small R&D lab where I could test. But I reiterate what Derek was saying. If it's not, your place of work, maybe I even considered, because we don't have, or I didn't have a sheeter at first. So I considered going to an old bakery that I worked at and asked if I could, go on off hours and just practice using that sheeter. I think really tapping into your network to see what's available out to help you practice, because I do think that's such a huge part of it. Another thing for me was, once you receive the rubric and you kind of have those different categories of what you need to produce for the practical exam, I really focus on each one individually first. So, donuts or Danish or the cakes. I spent a lot of time just really kind of practicing those individually when I had the time, because that's something that you can do, at home. If you don't, have that space to kind of do everything all at once. So really kind of focusing in on those individual categories and practicing them as much as you can, as much as is feasible, so that you feel comfortable with them. And then from there, kind of expand on it, and kind of to what Kristen was saying, working on that time management and trial runs. So I did spend a few weekends where I did mock, exams, where I took the 2 days and I mapped it all out and did a practice exam on my own. And I looked at the grading rubric and I graded myself. And, so I think that's important too. I think one thing that I wish I did more of was reaching out to the judges. I don't know if that was just in my head, in the weeds, or whatever it was, where I don't think I realized that I could have done that as much as that is an option. But I think that's something that you should be doing and asking these questions, because there are things that come up along the way as you go through the practice that you should be asking and feel comfortable with. So.
And Leanne, you have the unique experience that you've attended lots of these exams. So my question for lots and lots, how many do you think you've gone through now, Leanne?
I don't know. Am I up near 20, do you think? I don't know.
It's possible.
15?
I would say at least
15.
15.
Yeah.
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 So, you've seen a lot of candidates go through this test and know a little bit about how they prepared. So what would you say are the distinguishing factors of someone that's prepared and what they've done versus someone who maybe does not succeed?
Almost immediately, it becomes evident who's put practice time in. It shows right away. So any time you can devote to that is going to be beneficial to you. So I can't stress practicing enough. Aileen talked about going through the rubric, understanding how and what you're being graded on. And we've had candidates who focused on the wrong stuff, like adding extra garnishes or sauces, and there's nothing in the rubric for that. So it's time spent on something that isn't going to earn you any points. Understand how your points are divvied up and what's being graded. And within the points, on a lot of the categories, there are weight components, and people aren't practicing the weights. Comes up a fair amount of time. So look at what your weights should be. And because it's a retail baker's test, a lot of the weights are finished weights. Because if you put a label on something, you're legally required to hit that weight. So taking the time to calculate what the raw weight has to be in order to get the finished weight that you're required to hit, like, how much moisture are you going to lose in the oven? How much you're going to lose during cooling? Those things take time to figure out. So give yourself enough time to do those. Reach out to the judges. We can't stress this enough. And as somebody who's done this a bunch of times, it isn't bothering us. That's the first thing. Like, I love questions. I love when people reach out, and I think it's really important to get every one of your questions answered so that your brain is comfortable. If stuff is hanging out there, you become scattered. So there are no dumb questions. You're not bugging anybody. And we're waiting for you to get a hold of us. We want to hear from you, and we want to help you. We want to help you pass this test. It is a squirrely little test. I say it all the time. On paper, it can look deceiving. You're like, oh, I got to make 24 cookies. It's only 6 baguettes. But it's like the day at work where everybody called off sick. You're the only one there, and all your refrigeration went down, and you lost all your mise en place. And there's a banquet for 600. You're on your own, and you walk in the door with nothing prepped. So the only way you're going to get through that is practicing, understanding the parameters of the test, and we all need help. We all need help. Ask for help. Bring it on. We love helping you be successful. But the time you're going to take in practicing is is the number one thing. It's so necessary that you put some practice time in. And then at the end of the day, have fun.
And you mentioned some of the challenges, like, doing the full run through and the practice, sometimes the weights. I'd be curious to know from each of you what your biggest challenge with the test was and some of your stories during the exam. What went well, what didn't go well, and how just that the cycle of your day and how it went down. Aileen, do you wanna start off us with
Sure.
the story of your test?
Sure. So I took my exam at the CIA, and I know that, so Leanne was one of my judges, and I took the exam with 3 other people, and they all worked at the CIA, and we're very familiar with that environment. And I was kind of the outside person that was kind of winging it, which is like most people, I think, taking the exam. You know, you're going into a space that you've never been in before. You've never worked with the equipment. Maybe you've worked with that equipment in a different location, but it's still new equipment to you. The space is new. Where the small wares are is new. Where the ingredients are, it's all new. So that's, going back to preparation. You have to build some extra time into your schedule to accommodate that because it's all new. And then I would say I wasn't so happy after the first day. And I think probably most people can feel this way, where I did not love some of the product that I made. However, I do remember thinking coming out of that first day that for me, it was really important to finish the exam. And I knew that, especially after that first day, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect. Things happen along the course of the day. You may have your plan laid out, but like I said, you're in that new environment using new equipment. Things happen. The dish area is far away. Make sure you plan time for washing dishes. Half my day today is still washing dishes, so make sure you plan that time in because it's part of the job. But yeah, I remember leaving the day after that first day of the exam not really being happy with my performance. However, telling myself, no matter what the outcome, I still want to finish all the product and complete the exam, because that's what I came here to do, and I would feel happy at least doing that, because it's a tough exam, and like Leanne was saying, it's squirrely, things get away from you and things happen. And so that was my goal kind of going into the second day. And I did kind of think that I wasn't going to pass the exam just based on, how I thought I was doing. And in fact, I did have to retake a portion of my exam. However, I did end up passing, almost all of that. And I think it kind of goes back to telling myself, just finish the exam. Because as Leanne was saying, there is the rubric. There's a lot of different points on there. And I think the judges know that you're in a new environment, and kind of they take all of that into consideration as well. So for me, finishing that exam, pushing through, it's just like a tough production day. Sometimes you just have to push through and then move on to the next day. So for me, that was one of the biggest things that I remember from that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very memorable test when it was you and 3 other CIA instructors, and you were like, you're the Lone Ranger who was new to that environment. And I will reiterate that is very challenging for candidates when they come in to a new environment. And that's another topic that I encourage candidates to ask questions about as well ahead of time. We'll find out for you, you know, what the equipment is, the brands of ingredient you're going to get. We can try to do that recon for you ahead of time. Um, we also offer the candidates a virtual orientation prior to their test, where they can we either have the school do a recorded kind of walkthrough or a live Zoom meeting, where you can get at least a sense of the kitchen, the bake shop ahead of time. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Kristen, why don't we go through some of your highs and lows of your exam experience?
Well, definitely the first thing I thought of was the mandatory break. So I don't know, can you guys, yeah, like the mandatory break is the worst because I don't want to take a break. I don't need a break, but you have to take a break. And so on the second day, I was deep in the weeds and I had to take the break and I did not have time for this break. And I took it at the very last minute. And I remember looking at my to-do list, my schedule that I had, and thinking, there's no way I'm going to get all of this done. There's no way. But I thought, if I can get my challah in the proofer by this time, whatever it was, right, I might have a chance. And I thought, okay, Chrissy, I call myself Chrissy. Okay, Chrissy, you're just going to keep your head down and you're just going to power through and you're just going to do as good as you can. And however it is how it is. But you're just going to keep your head down and you're going to keep going. You're going to keep your head down and keep going. And I remember getting my challah braided and egg washed and looking at the time. And I was like, I might be able to do this. And I just kept going. So, you know, when you think like all is lost, like just keep going because sometimes, you know, you might surprise yourself. So that was definitely for me, like it was that, that's what I said in the beginning, like the time management was huge. That was the biggest part for me of the test. And I guess I wanted to say one last thing about like the judges. It's interesting because having been on like the other side where I'm at an exam as a CMB, the judges want you to pass. They are rooting for you. I mean, like rooting for you. So I guess I'm just saying that because I don't think I really realized like it wasn't like candidates against the judges, right? Like the judges want you to pass. They really want you to pass. And so that's why like pre-exam, send the emails, ask the questions. When you get there the night before, when you get like the lay of the land, like ask the questions. You're not being a pain in the butt. You're not being annoying. There are resources there to tap into. And it does not in any way make it seem like you don't know what you're doing because you're asking all these questions. If anything, I think it's probably the opposite, you know? So just another plug for emailing the judges before your exam because it's really, really helpful. It's really helpful. But yeah, just keep your head down, just like you're in the weeds working in a restaurant, right? The tickets keep coming. Just keep your head down and get through one ticket at a time. Just get it done. And all of a sudden, you know, you might be farther along than you thought. So that was my experience with the exam.
Yeah, I briefly mentioned it in the introduction, but RBA is so proud of our CMB community. And like Kristen said, the CMBs that get involved in judging are really some of the most giving, lovely people I've ever met. And now being with RBA since 2018, I've also got numerous certifications at this point, and they're always a highlight. And I hope that that's felt with the candidates as well, that it is an environment geared to learning. Yes, we want you to demonstrate your level of technique and expertise, but at the end of the day, pass or fail, we hope that it is a positive experience where you've learned something. So yeah, thank you, Kristen. Derek, what were some of your highs and lows of your CMB experience in Vancouver, Washington?
I did not sleep the night before. which is probably a common thing. I know.
Yeah.
Right. I went to bed at a decent hour. I fell asleep, but then I woke up like 3 hours before my alarm. And it's like, well, it's dark out. What am I going to do? Let me take out my binder and let me review. But starting the exam, some of the best advice I can be. This is a marathon run as a sprint. You need to know you're physically like ready for it, because we're coming from usually more the management side of things. When was the last time we did a full day's worth of dishes? We don't do that anymore. I have students, they do my dishes now. But I mean, the first thing I did was I had printed out my production schedule over 2 sheets of paper, very large prints. And like step one was tape it down to the counter and stick to the plan. I feel like if you start deviating from the plan, that's when everything goes upside down. And I knew I was going to, my first half of my first day, it was going to be a sprint, like scale, 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 get your doughs moving, get that yeast doing its thing, and just kind of keep pushing forward. Lunch is coming. You can take a brief nap if need be. And I remember like hitting that first lunch. It was like, okay, I'm good, but I need to finish this as strong as possible. The day one was my hustle day. I was feeling pretty good about things. And my one item I failed in my first take was on my day one. And visually, it came out. It was challah. And I got a tattoo of challah because of that. It says CMB on it. I'll always make it perfectly from now on. But I forgot an ingredient in hindsight and in my own personal debrief. And I know exactly where I left that ingredient. It was in the microwave. And so I ended up with this beautiful challah, and I didn't think anything of it. I got it on my rack to be judged, but I didn't realize like I think it weighed like a brick. It was heavy. So, but I keep it out of your head. Just keep moving forward. So I got everything scaled for the second day. Like I killed myself day one. I slept well going into day two. So I came in calm, cool, collected. Day two was just fun for me. I had a good time with day two because I killed myself on day one. Not to say things didn't happen. I forgot to like re-sheet out my my lamination, pulled back on itself, didn't sheet it back out to the 3 5 millimeters, whatever it was supposed to be. So I'm like, oh, cutting croissants now. I don't have enough dough. All right, made it work past the croissants. But little mistakes are going to happen and you can't harp on them. You need to move forward. I went into lunch the last day. I'm like, yeah, I got like an hour more work to do and I got 3 hours to go. And that's where ideally I wanted to be. And I ended with my strength. I ended with cakes. And I remember Leanne was there and Colette were there and we were just laughing and having a good time. And I'm decorating with roses. And I'm like, I've been decorating cakes since I was 8. I got this. And they were there to keep you in a good mindset, and I had a good coast to the finish. But that's not always what happens. There was some chaos happening around me, but also like I'm trying not to, like, if things are going well for me, I don't want other people to be stressed out. I've judged competitions, and that can be attacked in competition, but this is not a competition. It's you against a rubric. It's not you against anybody else in the room, which I think is something really important to remember as well.
Derek, I think you're an exception to the general rule because typically we see the opposite, where the first day everyone's like, got this in the bag. And
Sprinted that thing.
Day, and then everything falls apart. So well done beating the odds there. That's great. Leanne, how about yourself, your experience during your test? What went well? What went according to plan? What did not?
I had a couple things, and it's humbling to say my biggest mistake was ego. As I said, I had spent a lot of time in the artisan bread world and tried out for the United States team, and the thing I did not practice almost at all were baguettes. And I was like, I got this. I failed that. Yeah. So watch your ego if you've got one. I remember it came off the mixer, and I remember thinking, this looks really weird. And I was like, but I'm going to make it work. And I pulled my baguettes out of the couche, and I heard one of the judges lean over to the other one. They were close enough to hear, and I heard, what the heck did she do to that? He goes, I don't know. That doesn't look right. That's all screwed up. And I knew from that moment they were not going to pass. And everybody has said this. You just have to put your head down and keep going. It's like being at work. You're not quitting. You're not walking out the door. You're finishing the day. And to me, being a master baker, that's part of it, is can you deal with all the stuff that's going to go sideways and keep your head about you? And so that was the hardest thing for me, because it was my mistake. It wasn't something else. I did it. I own it. And then I took the test a while ago, before I got my grubby paws on the test and put rubrics in and did some standardizing. We got done with day one, and the lead judge said, wow, you people did really well. I'm going to give you some extra work.
We
And
don't do
added-
that anymore, by the
We
way.
don't do that anymore because it happened to me, and I was like, what? I got rewarded for doing well by getting another cake to do. And they also wanted the students, we often, almost always have student helpers at the sites to, help you find things, help you, show me again how to use the loader. They're there. They're not going to wash your dishes for you, but they're there to help most every other way. And the judge decided that it would be really lovely for the students to mix our buttercream for us for our cake. So the first time it came out, it was like soup. I'm like, I can't use this. Let me mix my own. And no, they'll get it. And they did it again, and it was slightly more stable soup. And we did this 3 times until I was trying very hard not to lose my mind and start yelling. And I was like, please let me mix this. So we don't do that now either. And it also leads me into, if anything happens on this exam that is in any way not your issue, or you did it, something happened, we try very, very, very hard to put you right. If let's, you go to use a mixer and it's not working, or it took you 15 minutes to find a dough hook that fit a 12 quart, people are running around looking for it. You come talk to us and let us know this is going on. We'll give you some time. We'll make it right. We'll figure out how to make this the most fair situation for you. And a lot of those things came because, I had some stuff happen in my exam, and I was like, well, that's not a whole lot of fun. So we constantly work at the exam and try to, take any situation that comes up and make it better, and go from there. But those are mine. I had some squirrely stuff happen. Other than that, sharing ovens was tough. And the judges now manage that. We don't let you guys change oven temps on each other. I had somebody change the oven on my Hollow when it was in and jacked it up. And I came back and the oven was on like 475, and my poor Hollow was in there. But and I'm trying to think what else. Lunch is horrible. Lunch is horrible. It is, anybody that has worked hard in their life just wants to get it done, and making you take lunch is painful. And you're probably sitting there wondering, why do you do that? Well, we've always done it, but it forces you to build some stuff into your time schedule. Can you manage your time schedule? Whether you have to meet with a client or accept a delivery, there are points in your day where you're going to have to stop production. So this is the one in the test. but it is a hard pill to swallow in the middle of the test. So, and Aileen, your products were spectacular. I know she's beating herself up, but I distinctly remember her products, and her stuff was amazing. You'll beat yourself up about it. Try to be nice to yourself. I remember Derek. I remember him at the end doing his cake, and it was so fun to watch, because you actually did say, I've been doing this my whole life. This is easy peasy. Which leads me to say, don't leave the thing you're least comfortable with to the end. People do that. They're like, oh, I'm not good at cakes, I'm going to leave it to the end. Don't do that. Leave the thing you're good at for the end, because by that point you're kind of frazzled. So don't leave difficult things to the very end. Not the best plan. So that was mine. And yet we're all CMBs at this point. So.
Well, Aileen, I was curious because I know you're really hard on yourself with your own products, but now with a judge's perspective, I know there's the rubrics that everyone can look at, and all the candidates, like we've said, have access to those rubrics ahead of time. But as a judge, what are you looking for as a general rule of thumb in the products?
Yeah, so I think as a judge, along with the products, I think first thing to look at is, and I think Leanne kind of talked about this already, but are you keeping your station clean? Are you organized? Do you have that plan, whether it's going how you want to go or not? But that's all I think really important just as a starting point. You want to have this test under control, whether you feel like you're doing well with it or not. I think that's really important to showcase that, because you have to do that, in your job as well. You can't have a messy station. You can't, it's not, in the workplace, that's not something that's, necessarily acceptable either. So I think that's one of the first things, is keeping your area clean, keeping it organized. I think that shows a lot right there. And then I think when it comes to the products, and as you're making them, it goes back to the practice. I think you can tell when someone hasn't practiced a particular product, and that ends up showing in the final product as well. That being said, I think really taking a look at that grading rubric as well, because I looked at it ahead of time. I did those practice exams and I graded myself. But really take a look at that, because I think that can help you out along the way. Like it's been said, all of us in this panel have mentioned how we've made mistakes here, we've made mistakes there. You're going to make a mistake with your product, and as a judge, you know that because you've been in that situation, and then you see it happening. But there's a lot of room within that rubric for you to still have a passing product. And again, I think it's just going for the completion, making sure you're having a finished product, whether you think it's the best product you made or not, but having that finished product is already going to put you so many steps ahead, because you're going to have points based on that rubric. It may not be the points that you want. You may still be thinking about it years later, but it's going to give you points. If you have no product to present, you're already starting at zero. So I think, again, just pushing through, having some product out there, being able to say, here's the product that I made. Maybe it's not 100%, but I'm still happy with it. I think that's important, even as a judge, looking at that as well.
Right. We have a question in the chat from Jeremy, who's also a certified baker with the RBA. And he's asking, what, aside from not practicing, what do you think the number one mistake is? Leanne?
So your first day, Friday, you come in for orientation and you get a tour of the bake shop. Taking advantage of that time and getting your hands on the equipment. You should ask to use the loader to, hit the buttons, press the steam, ask where the hot spots are in the oven, ask, can I hit the steam button twice? What's the, is this mixer running the same as that mix? Ask questions, turn stuff on, practice with it a little bit. Like it's a time that often isn't utilized, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. Like, where's the hot spot? If we can't answer a question, we'll tell you, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. But generally, we can ask it. So come in with some things that you want to know about the equipment, and put your hands on it. Try it out.
One thing I'd like
I
to
would
touch
add,
on- Oh, yeah, please.
I was
go.
to say, I would add to it, remaking a product. Because you most likely don't have that built into your schedule. You most likely don't have extra time to do it. And I think it can quickly throw people off the rails.
Yeah,
And-
we do explain during the orientation if the attendees aren't familiar with all the protocol, we can say you can remake a product if you know it's failing or and you think you have room in your timeline. But Leanne, I don't know if you want to add to that.
It rarely works out well. Almost always the first run is better. I think I've only seen somebody remake something once that it was worth the time. And you will be very hard on yourself and make assumptions that something's failing and it's not. So be really, really certain something's really, really horrible before you use that time.
I would love to touch a little bit in our last few minutes here together on the written exam as well, and ways that you prepared for that test. Kristen, do you want to start us off with a little bit about the written test?
Oh my gosh, I took that written test so long ago now. The thing, and I don't know if the written test includes the baker's percentage, but okay. So for me, it was definitely like brushing up on all of that sort of math, because again, as a pastry chef, baker's percentage is not necessarily where I live. I had learned it when I was in school, but it wasn't something that I used that often. So definitely just kind of getting like a good reminder, a good little lesson, do a couple of practice. I didn't have to do a lot of practice. Like once I remembered, I was like, oh yeah. But, I definitely reviewed that math kind of stuff beforehand. And as far as the other exam, I'm afraid I don't remember because I took it in 2018. So maybe Derek has some, or Eileen has some better remembering of how they prepared for the written part.
Derek, would you like to speak to that a little bit?
So the biggest thing is we're given study materials. That's the test, right? Study it. There's also there are things out there. I mean, we're given a reading list. Many of us probably own most of that list to start with. Go back, review it. It might have been a while since you picked something up, or you use it as a reference, but maybe you don't read through it. Maybe it's not the time to pick up the next New York Times bestseller. Pick up one of your old textbooks, review the material, and particularly with the math. You need to know your math inside and out. I mean, the clock starts ticking with the written math part of the exam. Don't waste all of your first hour on math that you should know. All right, so you should be able to kind of blow through that relatively quickly and then just get into production. And just with my test, I saw people struggling with it, or second guessing yourself. All right, if you know the material, go with it. All right, it's as long as you pass that portion, you're good. All right, just move on. But yeah, with a 2-hour test, know your material. Like any other online test, you can mark your questions and you can come back to them. And yeah, just study and learn how to studying works for you, because going in cold is not going to work. Oh, and one last thing. It's very retail baking specific, so it might not be things that we practice all the time. So really, when you're skimming through those resources, and they're talking about like a lot of, production and defrosting and all these things, like it might not be things that you do all the time, but you need to know what the standard is, and you're being tested on a standard.
So there's the 2-hour written exam that's multiple choice that's taken prior to the practical. And then what Derek was referring to is also on the first day of production at 7 a.m. when you arrive, there is a baker's percentage exam as well. And as soon as you're finished with that math portion of the exam, you can start your production in the bake shop. And that we do see quite often, either people jumping right into their production, or it takes them quite a bit of time. So being prepared for that. We have about 3 minutes here, and we've talked a lot about the process of the exam and the grading. But what would you say? How has the CMB exam impacted your career and growth? Aileen, let's start with you.
Sure. So, I think just personally, a big confidence boost. It's something that I have been working towards since I decided to go to culinary school. And, professionally, I think I take a lot of pride having the CMB follow my name when it's in my signature. So I haven't necessarily changed company that I work for or changed the position that I'm in since I've become a CMB. However, having that CMB follow my name really just, it adds a lot of credibility to people who may not know me, that I work with. I work for a fairly big organization, and potentially work with people across the country. And immediately, I think having that CMB there's an instant recognition of a certain level of knowledge that they know I must have. And I just think, it just helps out a lot. Like I said, lends to the credibility. So yeah.
Great. Kristen, how about you?
I think about it more in terms of growth, because I am still at the same establishment. I feel like I'm a much more well-rounded professional. Again, I came from more of the pastry side, and I think I have, I just feel much more well-rounded. And also, as an adult, sometimes it's a little frightening to dive into things that you're not perfectly great at, because I don't know, like it's just, but so it was a real humbling learning experience for me to go back and say, you know what, I'm not as familiar with bread as I'd like to be, and being willing to learn and ask questions and take feedback. Right there's a lot of growth in that. And like Leanne said, I think that those letters after your name, CMB, it does open up doors to you professionally, for sure. So that's what I would say, the quick and dirty of it. So,
And Leanne, do you want to finish us up with your reflections on that? Oh, you're muted. There we go.
For me, it's been a lifelong love of baking, and I loved the whole thing. I loved the challenge of it. I loved the learning of it. I loved the people I met. I loved the introduction to being a part of the RBA family. I'm a big baking nerd. It fit in with the whole thing. And I'm super proud and honored to be one of the CMBs. It's an amazing club to be in.
Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your insights. For all that attended, please feel free to reach out to any of us for questions. If you are gearing up to take this test, use like as everyone said, reach out to judges, reach out to myself, Marissa at retailbakersofamerica.org, and I can put you in touch with somebody because we are here to support you. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here and stay in touch. Thank you.